6 months of war, more than 5,000 civilian deaths, 6.7 million Ukrainian refugees scattered across Europe.
The people that are there now are Russians, Russian soldiers, and they kill children.
The impact of the conflict extending far beyond its borders, exacerbating a global cost of living crisis unseen for a generation.
We face a real risk of multiple famines this year. And next year could be even worse.
Russia now occupies 13% more of the country than in 2014, making gains in the east and the south. It also has control of Europe's largest nuclear plant.
We are worried. We are sitting on a powder keg.
But a chaotic war that began at great speed has slowed.
Ukrainians have proven that our people are invincible. Our defenders are invincible.
In much of the West and Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, pre-war life has largely returned.
We're not scared.
Thousands gathering to a display of destroyed Russian tanks placed in the capital's main street to mark Ukraine's Independence Day.
We are proving to the whole world that it is not only faith that we have, we can also fight. And this is the result of this fight.
But mass celebrations in the capital have been banned.
We should be aware that this week, Russia may try to do something particularly nasty, something particularly cruel.
For now, a united West continues to pour weapons into the country.
I am grateful to all European politicians who do not forget that the 8th sanctions package against Russia is needed.
Thanks to the war, Europe is battling soaring energy and food prices, and Ukraine's notoriously bitter winter is fast approaching. So with no peace talks in sight, what hope is there for a country that has already suffered so much?
And Vasyl Myroshnychenko is Ukraine's ambassador to Australia, and he joins us now before, we should say, racing off to a diplomatic function tonight, which is why you look so suave. If only all our guests were dressed as well as you when they arrived on our show. Sorry for our lack of tie, Pete Hellier.
Yeah, I would have worn a tie tonight if I knew.
But it is lovely to have you here tonight to talk about it. Tomorrow is your country's National Day. How do you mark a day like that when your country is in the situation it's in, when it's been torn in two?
Look, it's very difficult because it's 31st anniversary that we are celebrating tomorrow, but it's not that easy to celebrate something when 20% of your country has been occupied by the Russians. So for us, it's an opportunity to demonstrate unity, to demonstrate our resilience, to demonstrate our strengths, and to be able to get a message across to Vladimir Putin that Ukraine is out there fighting, dying for their land, and will not give up. Like tonight, I'm speaking at Tuareg Services Club, which is a military club of the retired senior officers in the Australian Army. Many of them were in combat. And tonight I'll be talking about war. I'll be talking about Russian war crimes, about crimes against humanity. As we are sitting here, Russians are getting ready for a show trial, which will take place tomorrow in Mariupol. That includes our prisoners of war, which were captured at Azov steel mill. Tomorrow, they will be on public stage, sitting in a cage in a building in Mariupol, where they will be judged. And that's, again, a crime in itself, because these prisoners of war are protected by a Geneva Convention protecting combatants. But there are no rules for Russia.
Are they deliberately doing it on Ukraine's National Day?
Yes, they deliberately do it on Ukraine's National Day, and we understand it. Just several weeks ago, they have tortured a group of POWs from the same place, from Mariupol, who were guaranteed actually life by the International Red Cross, ICRC, who negotiated, and they surrendered, believing that they would survive. But Russians have tortured them, and then they blew them up. We are afraid this is going to happen. The same thing is going to happen to these people there.
We keep hearing that the West is supplying armaments, a lot of armaments, to Ukraine to help to bolster your war effort. How crucial are those armaments to Ukraine?
They are crucial, and we need to see more of that coming, more of military assistance from Australia. We are very thankful to the Australian government for $400 million in military assistance. That's your investment into your security here in the Indo-Pacific. It may seem to be very remote, but actually you won't believe it, how quickly the war can come to your land.
Winter will be in Ukraine before you know it. How will that change the war?
It's going to be more difficult for Ukraine because it's always difficult in the winter. Many of our utilities were destroyed, so it will be a question of heating, but also of warm clothes for the soldiers, of the right ammunition. We have to secure a steady supply of those to be able to defend the country. Because for the time being, for every Ukrainian shell, we get 10 Russian shells. The Russians are sending more and more troops. They just have more people. They don't care about their people. So many of their soldiers get killed. Over 42,000 Russians been killed in Ukraine, around this number. And we keep on killing more. However, Russia continues selling its gas and oil and coal, and they use it money to kill more Ukrainians. We need more sanctions on Russia. The only way how we can stop Russia is actually by having the global alliance to stop the authoritarian rule and stop their bullying behavior. And Australia is playing a vital role in that, and Australia should continue supporting Ukraine.
Because of those numbers that you described, the war seems to have evolved now to a kind of stalemate. And if that stalemate holds for longer, there would be a situation potentially where there could potentially be peace, but it would come at the cost of Ukraine losing the east of the country. Would that be a price that Ukraine would be prepared to pay for peace?
No, Ukraine is not ready to pay the price. It's like somebody taking over Australia and taking over Queensland, or Victoria for that matter, and saying, well, we can stop killing you if you stop fighting. Would you give up Victoria for that? And it's not about the land, you have to understand. It's about the aspiration of Russia to destroy Ukraine's sovereignty. Once any stalemate out there which can bring a temporary ceasefire, when we've had it 8 years ago, Russia invaded us 8 years ago, and they've used the time to beef up their military and to mount a major assault on Ukraine. So the only ceasefire out there will actually provide more opportunities for Russia to resupply, regroup, and mount another attack. So we need to have the right military equipment, like tanks and jets and guns and long-range missiles, to be able to fight and repel the Russians from Ukraine, from Crimea, from all territory of Ukraine. And then we, of course, every war ends with a peace deal. And well, then we'll sit down and we'll have to make sure that we have security guarantees, that we have a system which will protect us from invasion in the future. Well, the only way forward for us is to become a member of NATO, just like for Finland and Sweden. They're now becoming members of NATO, and there is a reason for that.
So complicated, so much more to chat to you about. We know you do need to get to a function, but we really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me.